Failed gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake recently announced she is running for Senate in Arizona, where, regardless of if she wins, she'll say that she did, and her campaign is off to a really bad start. Kari Lake appeared on Rob Schmidt's show on Newsmax, where she got asked about Joe Biden, and in a response to the question, she manages to cram in so much dishonesty into a very short period of time. Certainly, she broke some sort of record. So take a look at this, and then I'll respond.
Most politicians would see a trend like that, and they would reverse course, and they would just run the country the way that Joe Biden, pretended he was as a senator for all those years. Back in the 90s, he was always kind of a goofball, but he was at least somewhat pragmatic, and he was more of a regular Democrat. He wasn't whatever this is now, and they don't learn anything. They just keep doubling down on it.
I don't think he can. One, I don't think he's smart enough. I think he has had some obviously cognitive decline. But beyond that, Rob, he's controlled by the people who bribed him. We know he's taken bribes from the CCP, from Ukraine. We know about his horrible, disastrous deal in Iran that is partially, if not mainly, to blame for these horrific Hamas attacks on Israel. He can't change course because, one, it would prove that he was wrong, and I don't think he's got the ego that could handle that. And two, his handlers, the CCP, Ukraine, everybody who's willing to give him a bribe, won't allow him to change course. So the people of this great country have to change course for ourselves. We have to vote him out.
So there's a lot to go through there, and I'll debunk all of it, so be patient as I walk through this. It's important that we specifically go through these claims, otherwise they just run wild. First, she accuses President Biden of being bribed by Ukraine and China. She's just lying, absolutely no evidence of that, and House Republicans have been desperately investigating Biden for months upon months, trying to find something that they can use to call the president corrupt, trying to distract Americans from the wrongdoing of Donald Trump with these manufactured controversies about Biden. But then their own witnesses come in and debunk the very conspiracy theories they are running with. Devin Archer saying Joe Biden has no involvement in Hunter Biden's business dealings, for example. Not to mention the fact that this whole Joe Biden was bribed claim was an idea that Rudy Giuliani wanted so badly to make a thing, traveled around the world trying to find something that could be used to legitimize this claim. And Giuliani's own stooge, Lev Parnas, who was trying to uncover dirt on Biden, wrote a letter to House Republicans saying, "Hey, I tried to find the stuff you're trying to find. Hate to break it to you, but it just doesn't exist." Quote, "A wild goose chase" is what he called it. So no, Joe Biden was not bribed, and that's why even many Republicans are confused as to why the heck their party has launched an impeachment inquiry into President Biden. Ken Buck, for example, calling it, quote, "impeachment theater." And numerous Republicans have admitted, yeah, we don't have any evidence that directly implicates Biden in any wrongdoing right now, but we're really definitely going to get it in just a week or two. Then she said that Biden's deal with Iran is partially, if not mainly to blame, quote, "partially, if not mainly to blame for Hamas's attacks on Israel," which is honestly a disgusting claim. There really is no bottom of the barrel for some people. Trying to blame terrorism by Hamas on Biden for absolutely no reason based in fact. But as to where that claim comes from, she's referencing Biden's prisoner swap deal with Iran that included the exchange of Iranian prisoners for American prisoners, as well as the releasing of American sanctions on $6 billion of Iranian money being held in a Qatari bank account. But, and this is what she ignores, that money is being monitored by the U.S. Treasury, and a part of the deal mandated that once the money was unfrozen, it would go directly to humanitarian purposes. It wouldn't go to the Iranian regime for whatever purpose they like, but instead to approved by the U.S. Treasury third-party vendors providing humanitarian aid. And since the attack by Hamas on Israel, we froze that money once again, and so not a dollar of it has even been touched. But instead of presenting the facts, she's trying to say that because of the relationship between the Iranian regime and Hamas, that $6 billion went toward Hamas's attack. Again, quite literally impossible. Here's John Kirby, the National Security Council coordinator on strategic communications, breaking this down further.
Ed, what I can tell you is that every single dime of that money is still sitting in the Qatari bank. Not one dime of it has been spent. I'd also remind, because this, I know in certain audiences, inconvenient facts are easy to forget. The regime was never going to see a dime of that money. And this account, although it's moved from South Korea to Qatar, was set up by the previous administration for this exact purpose. In fact, I think it was back in 2018, the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, actually talked in quite some detail about how this money in these accounts could only be used for humanitarian purposes and that there was going to be oversight. We've done nothing different. It is the same process. All we've done is move that funds from South Korea, where for some technical reasons it wasn't accessible, to Qatar, where it is more accessible. All that said, none of it has been accessed by the by Iran at all. And even if they had accessed it, it wouldn't go to the regime. It would go to approved vendors that we approved to go buy food, medicine, and medical equipment, agricultural products, and ship it into Iran directly to the benefit of the Iranian people.
So while Kari Lake and others lie about the reality of this deal, there are American citizens home now with their families because of the deal making of President Joe Biden that prevented any money from going into the hands of the Iranian regime. That's why lies run so rampant. It took her a minute, if that, to spew all of those lies, and me way longer to extensively and properly debunk them. As someone said, I think it's incorrectly attributed to Mark Twain, a lie can travel halfway around the world while the truth puts on its shoes. And that's why it's so important to get truth out there. By the way, to address this moment.
One, I don't think he's smart enough. I think he has had some obviously cognitive decline.
That is coming from someone, Kari Lake, who supports Donald Trump, who just in recent weeks has said Republicans eat their young, confused Obama for Biden twice, claimed to have defeated Obama in an election instead of Hillary Clinton, claimed Biden will lead us into World War II, confused Jeb Bush for George W. Bush, and repeatedly referred to in True Social posts a Stalin 2Ls election, which would be a German Christmas bread election, and much more. So yeah, tell me more about Biden's cognitive ability as he flies into war zones, manages world crises as U.S. president should, oversees a historic legislative record, etc. And one more part of this interview I want to respond to.
You know, back in the 90s, he was always kind of a goofball, but he was at least somewhat pragmatic, and he was more of a regular Democrat. He wasn't whatever this is now.
So please tell me, what specifically is it that's so radical about Biden's record? Because here it is, the American Rescue Plan. Is that so radical, helping people in a time of crisis? The bipartisan gun safety bill, the Inflation Reduction Act that lowered prescription drug costs, finally allowing Medicare to negotiate drug prices, which, by the way, Trump said he'd do. He didn't. Biden did it. The bipartisan infrastructure law that invested in roads, bridges, broadband, clean drinking water, etc. Or is it the PACT Act that's so radical that gives health care to veteran toxic burn pit victims, the CHIPS and Science Act, or his National Labor Relations Board rolling out new regulations that will fundamentally alter for the better the strength of labor in this country, raise the minimum wage for federal government workers as well? Is that what is so radical and extreme about Joe Biden? One of the most pro-labor presidents in American history, as countless presidential historians can tell you, I might add. Or do you have an issue with the fact that nearly 14 million jobs have been created under his administration? The fact that despite having to recover from a once-in-a-lifetime economic downturn that took place because of the pandemic when Biden wasn't president, we saw a faster and more efficient economic recovery than every other comparable economy globally when Biden was president, all while experiencing less inflation than those same economies. Still too much, of course. The aftermath of the pandemic caused economic downturn, brutal, but within the context of that crisis, way outperforming expectations. All that sounds very reasonable to me, but Rob Schmidt and Kari Lake somehow think it's radical. Hey, before you go, don't forget to become a member at lukebeasleyshow.com/membership, where you will now be getting access to a daily bonus show, an entire bonus show Monday through Friday exclusively for our members. Plus follow me on Threads at Luke Beasley Official, Instagram at Luke Beasley Official, Twitter or X at Luke P. Beasley. Sign up for the Beasley Brief, a daily morning newsletter summarizing the previous day's events by going to lukebeasleyshow.com/brief. And I'll see you all in the next video.